Welcome to Fairly Critical. I am your host Jacob, and today we are discussing Black Panther Wakanda Forever, the final product in the MCU's Phase 4. Before we start, I received some feedback on how I was structuring my movie reviews, so we are going to try something a little different today. In the past, I just made one video where there was a spoiler-free section and a spoiler section and a big warning that played in the middle. Today we are going to separate those two sections, so we'll have one video that is spoiler free, and then a second video that will release a little bit after this one that has spoilers in it. The second one will go into greater detail about what we discussed today, obviously, since I can use examples from the film. But this one is spoiler free. You can watch it and not have to worry about anything being ruined for you if you haven't seen the film yet. The second one will get a little bit more analytical and specific. But before we begin, I just want to take a moment to thank you all for the support on my last video. As of the time of this recording, it has over 1,900 views, and that is incredibly mind-blowing to me. I didn't expect to have a video that got more than 1,000 views for a long time, but you all supported that video with your views and your likes to an incredible degree. You've blessed me in a way that I cannot easily describe. So thank you. Thank you so much. So with that said, let's talk about the movie. Wakanda Forever is a sequel to 2018's Black Panther. This film focuses on Shuri and Queen Ramonda as they come to grips with the loss of King T'Challa and lead the nation of Wakanda against a new threat. Letitia Wright reprises her role as Shuri, and does the role justice. We get to see a tremendous amount of depth to her character in this one, which I think Wright did a good job delivering on. In terms of raw emotion, however, Angela Bassett steals the show. The grief her character feels is channeled into several powerful moments that naturally flow into loving tenderness moments later in those scenes. She was just amazing in this film. Both of them are supported by excellent efforts from Denai Guerrera, Winston Duke, and Lupita Nyong'o. I hope I said that name right. I'm not going to stick to it, so apologies if I didn't. But those three play Okoye, M'Baku, and Nakia respectively. Guerrera's ability to convey pain in this film is second only to Bassett herself, and Nyong'o, her empathy reminds us of why King T'Challa fell in love with her in the first film. I want to give a special shout out to Duke, whose character is somehow equal parts reverent, irreverent, comedic, intimidating, and comforting, all in the same character. He does a phenomenal job, and I can't easily describe how awesome he played that role. He knocked it out of the park. I'm going to probably screw this name up, but Tenoch Huerta joins the cast as Namor the Submariner. And while I certainly think that his performance was good, I think he was outacted by Bassett and Wright whenever he shared the screen with them. Additionally, though, there are scenes where he has to be intimidating, and then there are scenes where he has to be charming. And I think he does a great job in those scenes when it's just, when he's not being outshined but by his cast members. But there are also scenes where he has to transition from being charming to intimidating, and I think those were a bit lackluster. He never really seemed super intimidating when he had to transition from charming. He just kind of seemed charming with maybe poor word choice. I don't know. That's just how I would describe it without giving examples. Regardless, though, I think he did a pretty good job, and I am excited to see him grow into that character. He was one of a handful that joined the cast for this second movie who was not in the first one, and I think he did a pretty good job. Ryan Coogler returns to direct. He was, of course, the director of the first one, and I want to give special recognition to him for his ability to tell a story visually. The symbolism you can see in the props, the costumes, the shots, how the shots were set up is quite profound. And I can't. That's just from the first showing. I can't wait to see this movie again, so I can try and pick up on some of the little additional things that I missed. Um, the movie has a runtime of 2 hours and 41 minutes, making it a very, very long movie, but it is entertaining throughout. There was no point at which I was in the movie thinking this is dull or uninteresting. I wouldn't have. It didn't feel like I was sitting in a dark theater for nearly 3 hours. It felt like I was enjoying what I was looking at the entire time. It is very well paced, with one, I think, notable exception. Without going into spoilers, there is a point in the movie where Shuri makes a decision to do something that she was resisting or avoiding since the beginning of the movie with the death of her brother. And the decision she makes is not out of left field. It's definitely where the movie was going. But it almost feels like we missed half a step in the process. It's like the movie's leading up to it naturally, and then that final step is just like a half step uh, too far. Almost like you just kind of missed it. Like you were walking on the sidewalk and you didn't want to step on a crack. So you went like an extra, half inch or 2 inches or whatever to avoid the crack. That's kind of what it felt like. Maybe I would be interested when the movie comes out to see if there's a deleted scene that explains a little better, because that's kind of what it felt like. It's like maybe there was half a scene was pulled back to save on time. Honestly though, it's not that big of a deal. It kind of feels nitpicky to even be bringing it up, because it's something that you could easily miss if you just like weren't paying attention for a couple seconds and you came back and you're like, oh, must have missed the ending of that scene or something. It feels really nitpicky, but this is fairly critical, not fairly generous. So yeah, I'm gonna bring it up if there's a problem to it. So sorry. The plot is certainly very busy as it introduces more characters and plot lines that really had little or nothing to do with the plot of this movie. It's certainly for the purposes of setting up future projects in the MCU. But I don't fault Coogler for that, for having to squeeze those in. That's just the nature of working the MCU. Sometimes you get handed a list of things and you say, and they're like, hey, you have to find a way to put these in. So I don't fault him for that. In fact, I'd like to praise him a little bit, because he was able to do that with. I mean, it's noticeable, but it's certainly a good job doing it. I mean, as well as he was able to do it. I give him credit for being able to shove those in the places that he did and make it as low profile that it didn't belong in the movie as possible. And that kind of affects the screenplay. The screenplay itself, I think, is very well written. It had to be completely rewritten and reworked after the passing of Chadwick Boseman, due to cancer in 2020. And before we continue, I just want to take a moment to remember him. This was a man whose acting talent was so tremendous and probably only equaled by his philanthropic work. On a personal note, I mean, obviously, I never met the man, but I was inspired towards the end of his life, by his devotion to a faith that I share with him. And I mean, I'm just a white kid from Oklahoma. The internet is filled with stories about how the Black and African American communities found his work meaningful, with his roles as Jackie Robinson and Thurgood Marshall and James Brown, and of course the Black Panther himself. And I'm just not equipped to go through those internet stories. I can't connect with them, or I can't connect to them in ways that the Black and African American communities can. But I won't continue this. I wanted to bring that up, and just take a moment to reflect upon the life that Chadwick Boseman led, and what he represented, excuse me, to people outside of the movie theater itself. And the movie itself pays a special tribute to him in several scenes that actually brought tears to my eyes. His character's passing is the foundation of the entire emotional arc for Shuri and Queen Ramonda, in Wakanda Forever. The dialogue in this film is wonderful and delivered well by all actors involved. I do think the inclusion of Riri Williams as Ironheart, played by Thorne, Dominique Thorne, was completely unnecessary. Her only contribution to the plot itself could have been easily reworked, and her character could have been easily plucked out to save time and shorten the film. But she is getting her own Disney Plus show, and as such, they kind of have to put her in. But I do think they do, like I said, they do a good job fitting her in. But it was, I mean, you could have removed her and rewritten one scene, and it wouldn't have made a difference. Um, I do feel like the plot retreads a bit of the same ground that the first film did, as the villain's motivations are very similar to Eric Killmonger from the first Black Panther. Shuri's journey is not the same as T'Challa's in the first movie, but is actually reminiscent of his arc in Captain America: Civil War, which is the first time we met that character. But we'll discuss both of those points and Riri Williams as well in greater detail in the spoiler video. So we'll wrap this one up. Ultimately, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever has a good, if not original, story that is delivered very well by both the visual storytelling ability of Ryan Coogler and the acting talent of the cast. Admittedly, its villain and main plot are not nearly as compelling as the first Black Panther movie. And its screenplay is very busy with how much they had to shove in that doesn't really relate to the film, but sets up future projects. But it's still a good movie. I'm content to give it a rating of 7 out of 10. And while it is a worthy entry into the MCU, it is not enough to rescue Phase 4. Phase 4 has been marked by a distinct drop in quality compared to the Infinity Saga, otherwise known as Phases 1, 2, and 3. Wakanda Forever being a markedly better film than the Eternals, Multiverse of Madness, and Thor: Love and Thunder is simply not good enough to rescue the MCU's reputation from the damage done by those films, as well as some of the lesser Disney Plus shows. We're not going to go into all of that in this video. This video is a review of Wakanda Forever. We will do a retrospective video of Phase 4, probably coming out in late November or early December. But for now, know that I do recommend you go see this movie. Wakanda Forever is a good movie, but if you are an MCU fan, just manage your expectations with regard to its effect on Phase 4 as a whole. But this will be the end of our spoiler-free video. If you would like, you can check out our spoiler section video where we will go into greater detail and give some examples of what we've spoken about today. I will have a link in the description to this video. If you want to go see the movie before you watch that video, you should come up with your own opinions and then come discuss it over in the comment section. We can talk about it. But if you would like, you can check out some of our other videos over like analysis and lists on our channel. If you see anything you like, give a like to that video. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything out. But without further ado, I've been your host, Jacob. Thank you guys again, both for watching this video and for supporting the video I put out 2 weeks ago. And have a good week.